Welcome to this explainer. You know that feeling when you're frantically rushing, trying to catch up to everyone else around you? Well, today we're diving into a really powerful story about exactly that. It's all about personal growth, dodging that toxic comparison trap, and finally finding your own pace in life. We live in this world that is just obsessed with overnight success, so we're going to look at what happens when you feel like your own clock is ticking way too fast.
What am I doing with my life? Man, how many times have we all thought that? For the boy in our story, this wasn't just a passing thought. It was a constant loop playing in his head, while he was eating, while he was studying, even right before closing his eyes to sleep. It was just this heavy, constant drumbeat that drowned out everything else. And that exhausting question stemmed from one core belief. He truly believed he was late in life. We're talking about a young guy who felt completely and utterly left behind by his peers. Imagine feeling like the starting gun went off years ago, and you're still at the starting line, trying to tie your shoes. That's exactly where he was. And the trigger for all this anxiety? It's something we can all relate to. Every single morning, the moment his eyes opened, he grabbed his phone. And what did he see? People his exact age hitting massive milestones. They're making money, launching businesses, traveling the world, and projecting this image of total happiness and unshakable confidence. It is so easy to fall into that trap, right? Scrolling through someone's perfect highlight reel while you're still in your pajamas, wondering where you went wrong.
So one evening, after another exhausting day of comparing his behind-the-scenes reality to everyone else's front-stage performance, he's sitting alone on a small hill near his village. He's watching this gorgeous orange and golden sunset, just wrapped up in his own insecurities. Suddenly, an old gardener walks past carrying a simple basket of seeds. The gardener notices the absolute sadness on the boy's face, stops, and decides to sit right beside him.
The gardener asks what's troubling him, and the boy just lets it all out. He sighs and says, "Everyone is moving ahead, everyone is succeeding. I feel like I'm falling behind. I think I'm too late." It's a heartbreaking confession, honestly, but it perfectly captures the anxiety so many of us feel when we look at the hyper-competitive world around us.
Now, the gardener doesn't argue with him. He doesn't offer toxic positivity or tell him to just cheer up. Instead, he listens quietly, takes 3 seeds from his basket, places them on the dirt, and asks this brilliant question. Tell me, which of these seeds will grow first? The boy looks closely and points out that, well, they all look exactly the same. The gardener just smiles and says, "Exactly."
Then the gardener points out toward a nearby field. Over in one corner, there's a huge mango tree, and right near it is a coconut tree. He asks the boy which one is successful. Naturally, the boy guesses the mango tree because it's bigger. But the gardener gently laughs. He explains that the coconut tree took years to reach that height, while the mango tree just grows differently. They have completely unique growth patterns, so comparing their height at any random moment totally misses the point of what they are.
Gesturing to a tiny plant growing right next to those massive trees, the gardener asks, "Is this little plant a failure because it isn't as tall as the trees?" The boy shakes his head and says, "No, of course not, because it's still growing." Without a single lecture, the gardener is systematically dismantling the boy's flawed perspective on success and failure.
For a moment, they both just sit there in silence. As the wind moves softly through the trees, the gardener drops a line the boy would never forget. He says, "People compare their beginnings to someone else's middle." Wow. That is the absolute core of the gardener's wisdom right there, and a massive takeaway for us in this explainer.
Think of it like a staircase illusion. When you see someone standing on the 10th step, your brain immediately panics and goes, "Oh no, I'm behind." But what you completely fail to see are the 9 difficult, grueling, unseen steps they had to climb to get there. We constantly judge ourselves against the visible 10th step of others, totally ignoring the invisible hard work and the time it actually took them.
Hearing this, the boy felt something fundamental shift inside of him. The gardener picks up a seed and reminds him that this tiny seed doesn't panic just because the tree beside it is taller. It simply focuses on growing. Handing that seed to the boy, he leaves him with one powerful directive. Your only job is to grow.
That night, the boy goes home and thinks deeply about those words, and he makes a massive, life-altering shift in his mindset. For the first time in months, he stops asking that panic-inducing question, "Why am I behind?" Instead, he starts asking an actionable, focused question, "What can I do today?"
He didn't try to change his entire life overnight. Instead, the very next morning he built a new, quiet, daily routine. He read 10 pages of a book. Not 50, just 10. He learned one new skill. He practiced for 30 minutes. He committed to these really small, consistent steps. And as the story notes, nothing dramatic happened at first. Nobody applauded. Nobody even noticed.
But he kept at it, day after day, maintaining those tiny habits. Week after week, continuing without an audience. Month after month, slowly building momentum. This is the reality of growth. Real progress is almost completely invisible in the short term. The seed was germinating underground, totally out of sight.
Slowly, something incredible began to happen. His confidence grew, his knowledge expanded, his skills improved. The person who once felt so lost started becoming undeniably stronger. Not because he made one giant leap, but because he made small changes consistently. Years later, because of this unglamorous dedication, people looked at him and called him highly successful.
When people inevitably asked him for his secret, the boy, who was now a successful man, smiled. He remembered the old gardener and the seeds, and he delivered this beautiful truth. My secret is that I stopped worrying about where everyone else was. I started focusing on growing where I was planted.
The reality is, so many of us are exactly like that boy. We look around, we panic, and we feel hopelessly late. We unfairly compare our own very first chapter to someone else's chapter 20. We completely forget that every single person is walking an entirely different journey, with different timelines and a totally different purpose.
Just look at nature's beautiful, individualized timelines. The sun rises at its own time, the moon appears at its own time, flowers bloom when they're ready. They don't rush, and they certainly don't look at each other to decide when it's time to shine. And honestly, neither should you.
If you're watching this explainer right now and you are feeling behind today, I want you to remember the seed and remember the old gardener. Your journey is absolutely not a race against others. It's simply the journey of becoming the person you are meant to be.
You do not need to be the fastest. You do not need to be the first. You literally only need to keep growing, because the person who feels small and insignificant today could easily become the grand tree that inspires everyone else tomorrow.
Which brings us to our final takeaway. Don't compare your growth to someone else's timeline. A seed and a tree are both successful. They're just in different seasons. Keep going, keep learning, and keep growing. Stop checking the 10th step of the person next to you. So, I'll leave you with this question. Instead of asking why you are behind, what are the 10 pages you are going to read today to start growing right where you are planted?